Pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. No, I'm not talking about Thanksgiving. I'm talking about impeachment. Polls show Donald Trump is getting 35% of the black vote. Is that real? I'll tell you in a minute. Finally, I will break down your Thanksgiving menu and tell you why it stinks and why you should follow me. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Back in the 19th century, Britain was an extremely powerful world empire. Hang on, I'm going somewhere with this, you boring nerds. They also controlled India. Russia was, well, Russia. Always expanding, always looking to flex their muscle a little bit. And so what is in between India, where Britain controlled, and Russia? Afghanistan. So Britain decided, it's not enough to control India. What if we grabbed just a little bit more territory and also denied Afghanistan to the Russians? That sounds like a good idea, right? And so they did. They waltzed on into Afghanistan and ditched the guy in charge and put their guy in charge, and it all worked out great, right? In the end? No, it didn't. Obviously, a lesson that no American needs to be taught. Afghanistan is a very difficult place to tame. Basically, the Brits got wiped out in Afghanistan almost to the very last man. Lost everybody. Lost everything. What's the lesson in there, ladies and gentlemen? The lesson is pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. Do not be greedy. Don't let your eyes be too big for your stomach. Have I gone through enough cliches quite yet? Or maybe we should just go with the great Albert Einstein when he said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. What am I talking about? I am talking about impeachment. Here's where we stand right now. It's a loser. It just is. Look, even hardcore Democrats, some of them are saying, no, but this is, maybe we should move on. It didn't move the meter. Yes, the hardcore Democrats are dug in and say he's going down. But those people are stupid, and those people already have their minds made up. The truth of the matter is they're polling independent after independent after independent in the swing states, and they all show the American people don't care. Do you remember what I so intelligently told you all a couple weeks ago? I said what you need to watch out for is the television ratings and the television networks who still carry this. I told you that one of the major networks would start dropping this and that others would follow. And as soon as a major network dropped coverage of the impeachment hearings, you would know it's a loser. It lasted 6 days until CBS said, actually, we're just going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming. It didn't move the meter. There's no new way to brand it. There's no new way to make the American people care. I actually think it's fairly impressive that the Democrats got impeachment this far with nothing. But the truth of the matter is eventually you do need something if you're going to sway Republicans and independents to vote for impeachment or to back impeachment in any way. So what's this opportunity Democrats currently face? It's Thanksgiving week. People are either on vacation or they're on their way to vacation. It's a slow news day. There's nothing major happening out there. This is what you call a turn down time. So this is the perfect time for Democrats, if they had any brains, to just let it go. Just kind of let it die. Maybe you even make an announcement that we're moving on or we're putting it on hold for now, and everyone will know what that means. But the truth is it would get lost with the family and friends and vacation and Thanksgiving food and football. And then you could come back and just kind of pretend like it never happened. Sure, you'd get some questions about it, but you could use this downtime where no one's paying attention to move on. Because as bad as this has been so far for Democrats, Donald Trump's now up in virtually every single swing state poll against every single Democrat. As bad as this has been, it only actually gets worse from here. So the Democrats should drop it, right? It's obvious to everybody with half a brain, this is a good time to drop it. Let's drop it. We should drop it. But ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Adam Schiff, who's not going to drop it.
We're going to continue our investigation. We are going to continue to pursue
even after
the documents.
Handed in the report, you're going to continue?
Yes. Oh, yes. The investigation isn't going to end.
He's going to continue it, people. He is. They're going to call more witnesses. Now, There's some political backdealing I should probably tell you about, just so you know. Rumor has it, which is a nice way of saying this is pretty much a fact, Adam Schiff is competing with Jerry Nadler to be the next Speaker of the House. It's no secret. Anybody who's seen her give one of her shaky press conferences knows Nancy Pelosi is on the way out, whether it be this term or next term. She's going to have to step down or be forced out. So they're all competing to be the next Democrat Speaker of the House or the next one in charge of their party. Adam Schiff is in a safe district. Adam Schiff doesn't have any personal motivation at all to drop the impeachment process. And you can say to yourself, but he needs to protect Democrats. People, do you think any of these politicians actually care about the politician to their right or the politician to their left? Wait a minute. That's my left and that's my right. Shut up. It's been a long week. They don't care. Adam Schiff cares about himself. He's not going to let this go. He's going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And he's going to wipe out his own party. We even have Democrats like Jeff Van Drew saying this.
So I don't know how other folks will vote because, in all honesty, originally I thought there were going to be a few more. Not that it matters to me if I'm one or I'm 101. I do what I believe is right.
Good for you.
But there is some discussion among some of them, quietly, privately, of concern, certainly. I mean, what I'm hearing out in the street is, with most people, is they're kind of tired, they're kind of worn out, they're kind of bored, most folks, and they really want to move on unless there's something new and amazing. We know the end game here.
People, that's a Democrat. That's not some hardcore Republican partisan hack. That's a Democrat. They are hearing it. And what it means is when they go back to their congressional office and they sit down behind the desk and they say, Tina, do I have any calls? She said, yes, sir. You got another 10 messages from angry constituents that you're wasting their time on impeachment. They open up their congressional email and they see 100 emails from people. They are hearing things, and especially the Democrats who are in vulnerable seats, they know. They know this is a very, very, very bad idea and they should stop it. But I don't think they can. I think the impeachment train is rolling. I think the impeachment train is speeding, and they have made 2-3 years of impeachment promises. You remember all Russian collusion, beginning of the end. Donald Trump is going down. Vote for me and I'll impeach him. Vote for me and I'll impeach him. Vote for me and I'll impeach him. So now they no longer have the luxury of just standing up and saying, we have nothing, we can't impeach him. But they should. We are witnessing something you, as a partisan hack like me, should sit back and enjoy. We are witnessing the death of a major party. Now, they'll come back to life. Nothing lasts forever. But the Democrat Party is at risk of being in the wilderness. Look at where they are. They have an impeachment hearing that is not only dying, it's killing them along with it. And the two leading Democrats in America, Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, are aging before our eyes, and I should say, and I don't mean this in a mean way, degenerating before our eyes. You have an impeachment proceeding that has become a parasite, and your two leading candidates cannot string sentences together in public anymore. Life's good to be a Republican right now. Now, coming up next, Daniel Turner with Power of the Future is going to break down a little bit of Bloomberg for us because he can't stand Bloomberg. And then he's going to tell us what happened at the Harvard-Yale football game. It was actually something interesting. Hang on. Welcome back. It is time to talk a little bit more Bloomberg because, look, I can't stand Bloomberg, and my next guest really can't stand Bloomberg. And then we're going to talk about something nobody else in the world would ever talk about, the Harvard-Yale football game. Don't worry, it'll be entertaining. So to break down both of those things, let us bring in Power the Future's own Daniel Turner, and friend of mine. Daniel, all right, Michael Bloomberg is officially in the race. He is, going to spend a boatload of money. He's already talking about $100 billion here. I mean, everybody's lying already about how much money he's going to spend and the damage he's going to do. I say, one, most importantly, he's too short to be president, and two, he's too prickly to be president. The guy cannot even smile without looking like he's stepping on a thumbtack. But you actually have more in-depth, analysis of Michael Bloomberg. Why don't you give it to me?
Yeah, my biggest problem with Michael Bloomberg is not his wealth. I don't begrudge anyone in America who has earned an honest living, and God bless him for inventing such a great product. My problem with him is that as an authoritarian dictator, a liberal authoritarian basically, he believes that he knows what is better for everybody else, whether it's the size of your soda, whether it's what you drink, or if you smoke, etc. But most importantly, when it comes to the energy issue, since he has announced his candidacy, he has been to Virginia, and today he is in Arizona. And my question for the climate change radical and Michael Bloomberg: how did you get to those places? Did he take the Delta shuttle like some of us do? Did he take Greyhound like a lot of Americans do? No, Michael Bloomberg has a fleet of private jets. So he wants to shut down energy for the rest of us. And this is a guy who flies privately on a regular basis.
Now, so obviously he's a climate change hypocrite, which basically puts him right in line with all the other climate change, celebrities and famous rich people in the world. Leonardo DiCaprio scolding everyone else about their carbon footprint while he sails around on a yacht with supermodels all the time. I mean, only half of that's really cool. Now, what has Michael Bloomberg done for small towns in this country?
Yeah, and if you look at his TV ads, which at least here in DC where I am, they've started running this week. Huge ad buy on the Bloomberg campaign. He says very proudly how he has donated, his philanthropy has donated enough to shut down half of the coal plants in America. He put this in his messaging, and I hope some of your viewers will actually see these commercials. Shutting down half the coal plants in America is not a good thing, because yes, it has driven the cost of electricity up in these areas, but it's taken away thousands, tens of thousands of jobs in rural communities where sometimes you have 3 and 4 generations of coal miners that don't have necessarily a fancy college degree. I have no college degree, but these are folks who had very good, honest livings in rural America working in coal. And what happened to those communities? Now they have opioid epidemics. The opioid epidemic is worse in former coal towns. Their mortgages are underwater because without jobs, no one wants to live there and no one is buying a house there. Poverty has gone rampant. Suicide is up. Domestic violence is up. So Michael Bloomberg, if you want to talk about with pride how you've shut down coal plants, just go visit them. Just come to some of the towns in West Virginia I have visited and talk to these people and look them in the eye and say, yes, you are unemployed and your family was broken up because I, Michael Bloomberg from Manhattan, do not like the coal industry.
And that's the sad part about it, Daniel, is none of these socialists ever have to live through the consequences of their socialist policies. And frankly, none of them even look back. He'll never be back to these towns that have been absolutely wiped out and decimated. He'll be running do-gooder TV ads acting like he saved the planet while someone else is shooting up heroin at a rural town in West Virginia. It's really actually quite pathetic. But moving on from that, what happened this weekend at the Harvard-Yale game? Why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, well, in addition to pretty lousy football, if you're a college football fan, and I'm a huge college football fan, you're probably not watching the Harvard-Yale game. But look, and this is something that you talk about a lot, Jesse, especially on social media, how the left never cedes any ground. You cannot have a respite, not in the movies, not now in football, definitely not an award show. And so during the Harvard-Yale football game at halftime, hundreds of alumni, faculty, current students, even celebrities, the guy from Law and Order, Sam Waterfield or whatever his name is, stormed the field. They refused to leave. They delayed the game about 40 minutes because of course, fossil fuels and climate change. And this is just standard of the left. They ruin absolutely every part of culture. Everything they get their hands on, they destroy.
I have so many questions about how they even got on the field, why they were even allowed to be on the field. But you know what, Daniel? And you can say I'm cruel for this. Actually, you and I will probably see eye to eye on this. I have a hard time feeling bad for a university like Harvard or Yale when it comes to stuff like this, because this is what universities court today, is it not? I mean, you want to turn every kid into a little social justice warrior activist and, punch a Nazi this, and you can't say that, and I need to save space this. Sorry if your college football game gets ruined by the little monsters you helped create. Enjoy your Frankenstein.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And you look at real protesters in Tehran today. I was just looking at video of the Iranian National Guard shooting protesters there. Look at what's happening in Hong Kong. So if you think the poetry major at Yale with her hashtag is very proud that she's on the field stopping a football game, and she, in her mind, probably sees herself as the same type of freedom fighter and justice warrior. But you're absolutely right. Look, if these college kids, these Harvard and Yale kids, really care about the environment, it's getting cold in the Northeast. How about you just don't use the heat? All cold dorms, right? Why don't you guys take that? How about none of you study abroad, right? Are you going to miss that semester in Amsterdam, or are you going to stay here in America because of climate change? And you know the answer to those questions, and so do I.
I do. And you know what, Daniel? It's one thing to dismiss it and laugh at them, because I do when they're ruining a college football game. My problem is, and we're seeing a lot of this now, is these kids this Saturday were screwing up a college football game with their stupid activism. The problem is next Saturday, or I should say a year or two from now, they're getting elected to Congress, they're becoming senators, they're involving themselves in corporate America, which is why, as you pointed out a little earlier, I'm always pointing out the fact that it's everywhere now and it's miserable. Daniel, I've got two sons. I have to turn off the TV when I leave the room to make sure they're not going to turn on the television and see a Gillette transgender ad and come ask me questions about, Dad, what's exactly going on here?
Exactly. And you look at some of the people who come from this environment who have run for Congress, and of course I'm talking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the policies that she pushes. Look, she was on social media a couple months ago talking about how they're not growing enough yucca in the Bronx community gardens because of racism. Anyone who has seen Monty Python knows that what is tropical cannot grow in a temperate zone. Right? She's a college graduate from a prestigious Boston University, and she's talking about racism and that they're not growing yucca in the Bronx. She's making climate change policies. She's the author of the Green New Deal. So you're absolutely right. These little monsters at the Harvard-Yale game are going to grow up to positions of power and importance and influence your young children and the rest of us. And Harvard and Yale is just the breeding ground for terrible ideas that you and I are going to suffer the consequences of.
That's pretty telling for the university system in and of itself, by the way, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a graduate of it. Certainly not a ringing endorsement for her alma mater. Daniel Turner, Power of the Future, my friend. You enjoy your Thanksgiving this week. Enjoy your family.
I'm thankful for you, Jesse Kelly.
I'm thankful for me too, Daniel. Coming up next, well, I maybe should do a whole show on this. No, maybe I'll break it down for you simply. I'm going to teach you how to do Thanksgiving. Hang on. Let's talk about coalition building. Let's talk about national elections. You see, a recent Emerson poll and Rasmussen poll came out and showing Donald Trump sitting at, what? That can't be right. 34% approval according to Emerson, or 34.5 according to Emerson, 34% according to Rasmussen amongst black voters. That can't be right, right? Okay, well, it's not right. I don't want to burst your bubble. That's not right. No Republican nationally is currently going to get 34, 35% of the black vote in America. Traditionally, Republicans get around 7, 8%. That's the norm. Now, what do I mean by all this? Where does all this take you? You should realize that Donald Trump is gaining more ground with black voters than any other Republican has in quite some time. Is he gaining 34%? No, that's of course absurd. But he is gaining ground. You see, Barack Obama was elected president of the United States 2 times. And why? Well, there are a lot of reasons why. He ran a very smart campaign, gave a great speech. But the truth is, Barack Obama got 97, 98% of the black vote in the United States of America. If you can do that, you are very likely going to be president of the United States again. Well, the president of the United States. But other Democrats can't duplicate that. Joe Biden seems to be the best presidential candidate in the Democrat field with black Americans. I don't understand why. I don't pretend to understand why. It's not my area. But I do know this. Democrats need, not want, need 94, 95, 96% of the black people in America to vote for them, or they simply do not have enough support in other areas. This is the identity politics game they've played. This is the identity politics game they've chosen to commit themselves to. And the problem with that is, if you have a group that you've identified and all the black people are with us, and you take them and you put them in your back pocket and you say, we've got all them, now we can move on, and you start to lose them, well, you either have to get them back or you have to find votes somewhere else. Elections are about coalition building. And if Donald Trump is going to get 10, 15%, that's probably closer to the real number of black approval with Donald Trump, then it's already over for Democrats. And in fact, if it's half this number, let's say this 34% number is crazy, which I say it is crazy. Let's say it's half, 15, 16, 17%. That is not a Donald Trump win in 2020. That's a Donald Trump 40-plus states slaughtering, and also Republicans taking back the House and taking back the Senate. Now, I'm not predicting that right now, but that's what that number looks like if you look at the breakdown of numbers. And the truth of the matter is, Donald Trump is not leaving Democrats any lane, any vacuum to fill with the black community in America. Here's Donald Trump talking about it right now.
We've done more for African Americans in 3 years than the broken Washington establishment has done in more than 30 years. Last month, the African American unemployment rate reached the lowest level ever recorded in the history of our country. How do you lose that argument in a debate, right? The African American youth unemployment, this was so important to me. You remember how high it was, 60, 70%? Has now reached the lowest number ever recorded in the history of our country, doing really well. The African American poverty rate has reached an all-time historic low, lowest it's ever been. For the first time ever, most new hires of prime working age are minorities and women. First time that's ever happened.
That doesn't leave much of a lane for Democrats. He's right. When there's record low black unemployment, you have his prison reform bills, and you have illegal immigration. It's another issue that people do not realize that black community does care about, because when you have your country flooded with illegal immigrants, they don't go into the fancy schmancy neighborhoods. They go to a lot of poor black neighborhoods and take jobs that would otherwise be going to those people, and they know it. People are not stupid. People realize the truth. Now, this is not about black, white, Hispanic, whatever it may be. This is about elections. Step back with me and take a big, broad look at it. If Democrats are losing that percentage of black people in America, well, obviously they must realize it, and they're reaching out to others, right? Except they're not. The Democrat Party has a severe tolerance problem, which is actually kind of hilarious, because they're constantly claiming time after time after time that they're the tolerant party. They're the tolerant party. We are the party of tolerance. Look at how tolerant we are. Except they're not. You see, they'll welcome anybody in as long as you agree with every single thing that the radical left wants you to agree with. Look at how they're ripping apart two of their candidates. Andrew Yang, Asian dude. They're destroying Andrew Yang. Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a star, at least a video star. And people love to, they want to hear Tulsi Gabbard speak. She looks like $1 million. She's a potential star in the making. Even some Republicans are intrigued by Tulsi Gabbard. I would argue most of that's just by how good she looks in a pantsuit. But the truth of the matter is they're intrigued. Oh, wow, that could be a lane there. Democrats might be able to seize on that, except they're not seizing on it. They're kicking her out. You remember the last debate, Tulsi Gabbard's pulling at like 5%, and they're still attacking her, trying to axe her. You see, they have this dogmatic view of what you must be to be a Democrat, and it's killing them. They've not only lost the percentage of black people, percentage of this, percentage of that, they're telling everybody else, you're not welcome. And anyone who left, they're screaming at them and scolding them and saying, good, I'm glad you're gone. We don't need you here anyway. You see this time and time and time again. And until the Democrat Party returns to the days, or at least attempts to return to the days, where all were welcome, they are going to be in the wilderness. We have a party in trouble. The Republican Party, on the other hand, and there are a lot of reasons behind this, part of this is they got so beaten down over the years, thought of as, anti-black, anti-gay, anti-this, anti-that. They're just excited when anyone walks in the door. Now, sometimes you can find yourself being too tolerant of other ideologies or people who believe something different than what should be part of your party platform. But the truth is, it's a good thing. You go to a big Trump rally now, you see all kinds of people there, and that is a wonderful thing, especially when it comes to winning elections nationally. The hard truth is the Republican Party is now the tolerant party in America. You sign on for it, you say you're voting for him, you really don't see very much of, oh, I don't want his kind in here. Democrat Party does not have that right now, and it is crushing them, and that is wonderful. Now, again, I want to caution you, this doesn't last forever. Pendulums swing. Eventually, they will wake up. I think they're facing another couple big election losses before that happens, but they're going to wake up. At some point, let's say after 2020, they're going to look at a piece of paper that says, okay, we lost these people, and oh gosh, we lost them. We lost them, we lost them. At some point, they're going to look at that, and they're going to say to themselves, maybe it's time we got just a little bit more accepting. Maybe it's time we woke up. Maybe it's time we stopped railroading everybody who isn't a full commie. I don't know, though. The Democrats, if they were smart, they'd be Republican. All right, coming up next, the president of the Convention of States Action, Mark Meckler, joins me. Hang on. Joining me now to talk polling and coalition, the president of Convention of the States Action, Mark Meckler, joins me now. Mark, I see these numbers, Donald Trump getting 34% of the black vote. For one, I don't believe that at all. That seems way absurdly high to me. But I do believe he's getting a higher percentage of the black vote than Republicans have in recent history. But you're the expert. I'm the guy on TV. Tell me the truth. What's real?
I don't know how high the vote's going to be. It's really hard to predict something like that. My crystal ball's not that good. I can tell you anecdotally, I've been in 48 states. In the last 2 years, I've been in 11 states just in the last couple of weeks. And everything I'm hearing anecdotally out in the field is support for the president is way up among all groups, among Hispanics, among blacks, among conservatives generally. He has the highest rating of any Republican ever to hold office. I think it's pretty extraordinary what's happening. And I think the impeachment is really a blowback. You're seeing blowback against the Democrats right now.
Mark, when it comes to polling, again, people get confused about how polls are done, what they actually mean. And there are a lot of people out there. I mean, it's easy to look at the TV screen and see any poll you don't like and say fake news, but I think people don't realize how hard it is to get accurate polls and that polls are just a snapshot, right?
Yeah, polls are just a snapshot at best at a moment in time. I think a lot of times you have to look at the data behind the polling. How do they stack the poll? How do they weight the poll? I try to look at averages of polls as opposed to any individual poll, because like you said, you can get pretty much what you want out of a poll. And the one that is most interesting to me right now is looking at the real clear average of polls. And what you see is the president was at a high point September 24th when Nancy Pelosi opened impeachment hearings. He's lost, according to that average, about 1.3 to 1.6 points. That's a statistical anomaly at best. In other words, that's within the margin of error. So what you see is, at best for the Democrats, the polling hasn't been hurt at all by these impeachment hearings.
This thing I have argued is one of the biggest political disasters I've seen in a while. I should say political blunders. I cannot believe they walked right into this with nothing. I understand they made promises to their base to impeach him, but you can't pull that trigger. In my opinion, it's a huge mistake to try to pull that trigger before you have it, because now the base is going to be twice as mad when they don't get him.
Yeah, look, I think part of it's baked in. In other words, everybody knew that the Democrats, once they started this, they were going to impeach him. They were going to issue articles of impeachment. I think that's still the likely outcome in the House. It's going to go over to the Senate, and he's not going to be removed from office. I think the most interesting question is what happens in the Senate. Mitch McConnell's a master of procedure over there. He's got wide latitude to call witnesses. Imagine him calling Brennan or Clapper or Hillary Clinton or even President Obama. The latitude's very wide. Chief Justice Roberts will oversee the proceedings. But even if Roberts steps in at any given point, it takes only 51 to overrule. So really, the Republicans are in control of what happens in the Senate.
Yes, that's what I've argued. I'm with you on that. That this is as bad as this is for Democrats right now. This is as good as it gets. Once Mitch McConnell gets his claws into this, they are in very, very deep trouble. All right, I wanted to ask you about polling in general. I have argued, or at least I think, that polling is harder now than it's ever been before because America is more divided urban and rural than it's ever been before. You feel free to tell me if I'm stupid.
I think that's part of the reason, but I would go even deeper than that. People like you and I generally don't get polled. I can't recall ever being called. And again, I travel the country. I meet with grassroots every single day. And one of the things that I hear from my grassroots supporters is that even if they do get called, they don't answer those polls because they don't trust the pollsters. So what that means is inherently the polls, if they're even accurate in what they say, they're going to skew naturally to the left.
Yeah, that's a dangerous place to be when you're on the left and you're constantly getting confirmation bias from your polls instead of real numbers. The hard truth is oftentimes a lot more beneficial than sweet little lies. Now, as far as the Democrat Party goes, I have argued that they are now the party of intolerance, and it is really hurting them, not with any race or religion, just with their basic party platform. Anybody, no matter who they are, that strays from their radical platform gets destroyed. You look at how they treat people like Yang and Gabbard. I mean, they just destroy anyone who even slightly steps out. Mark, they're attacking Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard isn't even close to a front runner. Why would you punch down like that?
Well, because I think this is the natural outgrowth of leftism and ultimately at its root, Marxism. It requires total groupthink. You can look back at novels like 1984. They weren't intended to be projections of actual reality, but that's kind of where we are on the left. And so if anybody varies from that tribal mentality, if anybody takes a single step out, they're going to get slaughtered culturally. It's not healthy for the country, and it's definitely not even healthy for the Democratic Party itself. They're losing a large portion of their own base.
They really are, and I don't understand, I guess, when they're going to get that back, Mark, because I always say the pendulum swing. I mean, pendulum's going to come back the other way at some point. No party stays in power forever. That's just the way politics works. But is the left ever really going to have a moment and say, you know what, we should accept somebody more moderate? That also doesn't seem realistic either.
No, and when they do get more moderate candidates, what happens is the support for them is tepid from the the far left portion of the base. That's the portion of the base that has the most enthusiasm. Generally, it's putting the most into the races. So they're really in sort of a conundrum here. If they nominate somebody who's moderate, they lose the radical portion of the base. If they nominate somebody who's radical, they lose America.
Mark, tell me about the Convention of the States Action. What is it?
Look, I think Americans agree across the aisle that we've lost control of Washington, D.C. 85% of Americans want a balanced budget amendment. Over 80% of Americans want term limits. 72% of Americans say the federal government's too big and does too much. So the question is, do we just try to elect more of the same and hope for a different result? Well, that's insanity, as you know. The answer is no. The founders gave us the answer in Article 5 of the Constitution. It allows us to call a convention among the states to propose amendments to restrict federal tyranny. And that's precisely what we're doing. There are 4 million plus people involved in the movement today. It takes 34 states to call a convention. Today, 15 states have called, and I expect another 10 to 15 in the next year.
Well, that sounds like something we might need to keep our eye on. Mark Meckler, president of the Convention of the States Action, thank you for giving us some time and some wisdom tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Now, your Thanksgiving menu. It stinks. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to give you solutions coming up. This show is a way to give back. It's a charity, what I do. It's my job as somebody who's wiser than everyone else to reach out to, people like you and help you through important things like the holidays. So I take no pleasure in saying what I'm about to say, but you need to hear it. You've likely been doing Thanksgiving wrong your entire life. What is Thanksgiving? It's a time to come together for a few hours, put down your phones, and eat. Frankly, what's more important than eating? It's a lot better than spending time with family. So it's supposed to be a special occasion about food. And you've all been eating disgusting food the entire time. Oh, Jesse, you haven't had my turkey. Turkey sucks. Do you know how I know turkey sucks? Because you walk into a restaurant a whole bunch of times throughout the year with all kinds of menu options, and never once do you sit down and look at that menu and say, I'll have the turkey. Never once do you drive home and call the missus on the way and say, honey, I'm on the way home. Boy, I got a craving for turkey. Because turkey's horrible. It's dry, gutter trash meat. And don't give me these responses that I know I'm going to get them. You've never had my grandma's Cajun deep-fried, wrapped in bacon turkey. Buddy, you could wrap a jockstrap in bacon and deep fry it and it would be delicious. That doesn't mean turkey's good. So put away your turkey. It sucks. Put away your mashed potatoes. I hear this, mashed potatoes are delicious. Mashed potatoes are the lowest form of potato. You've taken something that could have been a scallop, or even better, a French fry, or a tater tot, and you've turned it into hot mush. It's disgusting. Oh, that green bean casserole that you think everybody loves, they're all lying to you. All the leftovers get thrown in the trash immediately the next day. And the best part of your traditional Thanksgiving, pumpkin pie, it sucks too. I mean, it's okay. It's halfway edible. But if you were to stand in front of a shelf and you're looking at cookies and cobblers and pies and cakes and everything else, how far down that list would you have to get before you picked the pumpkin pie out of the list? Really, really, really far, and you know it. You see, what you are is a slave. We've outlawed slavery in this country, so stop being a slave to tradition. Some traditions are meant to be broken. They used to have traditions all over the world that involved killing children. Well, we still do it, Planned Parenthood, but that's another story. It is time to make Thanksgiving great again. It's time to make Thanksgiving special again. So let me tell you what should be on your Thanksgiving menu this year so you don't have to suffer through an entire day of pretending like the turkey doesn't suck. First of all, tenderloin. Not just a regular old steak, not a T-bone. Go down to your local butcher and have them saw you off a 4 or 5 pound tenderloin, depending on how many people are going to be there, at least 48 hours prior to Thanksgiving. Then come up with a delicious marinade and marinate that bad boy. When Thanksgiving Day comes, when everyone else is trying to baste their turkey into something that tastes decent, you slide that tenderloin with the marinade in the oven and pull it out about an hour, hour and a half later, and then eat on it for the rest of the week. Number 2, salad. Now, am I endorsing salad? Of course not, but look, we all know the wife is going to make everybody eat some kind of green on Thanksgiving Day, or at least pretend you will. And she's going to focus on the salad anyway because that's what women do. So take a big bowl of salad and douse it with blue cheese dressing and eat a couple pieces of lettuce and say, oh, that's great, honey. I'm glad you suggested that. Good call. And then move it to the side. 3, Red Lobster's Cheddar Bay Biscuits. I know what you're thinking. Jesse, Red Lobster's too nice. I can't afford it. Or it's too far away. Rest assured, I've got a solution for you. You can now buy Red Lobster's Cheddar Bay Biscuit Mix right in your grocery store. Take that home, make it yourself. Finally, dessert's going to come along. And everyone else across the country is going to be like, oh, pumpkin pie, I've been really looking forward to this. And they're going to run for the Ready Whip and try anything they can do to convince themselves that they're eating something other than sludge. You know what you'll be eating? You'll be eating a berry cobbler combined with homemade vanilla ice cream. As soon as the cobbler is done, pull it out of the oven, give it just a few minutes. Don't give it too long. You need it piping hot. I'm going somewhere with this. And then get yourself a bowl, not a plate, get a bowl. Give yourself a generous scoop of the cobbler in it. Oh, I forgot to mention the top of your cobbler needs to be sugar cookies instead of the traditional crust. So you pile on the steaming hot cobbler into your bowl. Then you go to your homemade vanilla ice cream and put about 5 scoops of that on there and let the ice cream slowly start to melt until you have this ice creamy, crunchy, berry pile of deliciousness. And then you go pass out on the couch and, Lord willing, watch the Dallas Cowboys lose on Thanksgiving Day. Ladies and gentlemen, Do you think that sounds like just a little bit better of a meal than that crappy one you're probably going to roll out on Thursday? It is. Again, some people do this business that I do for a variety of reasons. I want to do it for fame. I want to do it for money. I do this to give back. In fact, I'm going to file this show on my taxes as a charitable donation for what I just did for you. I'm Jesse Kelly, and I'm ready.